Hello and welcome to another episode of That Fabric Guy here on YouTube. And today I'm going to talk about something that I get a lot of questions when I present at conferences. As you might know, I'm a Microsoft Data Platform MVP, and I got that title because I present at a lot of conferences, I blog, and I have this YouTube channel. But in these conferences that I present online, people will almost always come up to me and ask me, Bas, you are presenting Microsoft stuff and technology on a MacBook. Why do you do that? And the joke that I make is I love Microsoft, but I also love hardware that works. And my MacBook is simply the most amazing laptop I've ever had, and I've had great laptops in the past. And because I'm in the Apple ecosystem with an iPhone and an Apple Watch, it is fairly easy for me to work with my MacBook and have everything integrated in one operating system, and that's amazing. But then when you start working with Microsoft technologies, with SQL Server, Power BI, Fabric, and so on, it might get a little bit difficult. Or does it? I think it's easy to work from a MacBook when you're a Microsoft data engineer or consultant. And I'm going to show you what kinds of tools and technologies I use today. So first of all, when we look at my laptop screen here, and we can see it right here, is that we are indeed on a MacBook computer, on an Apple computer. And we see that by looking at this little Apple icon in here, the beautiful Apple icon. And then of course we have the traffic lights on my apps as well. That is something you won't find on a Windows machine. And this is a dead giveaway that we're looking at Mac OS. Now, what we are looking at is an instance of my Google Chrome browser. And within Google Chrome, I navigated to powerbi.com or to app.fabric.microsoft.com, I think. And from there, we can easily work with all kinds of stuff that is in Microsoft Fabric just from the browser. It works on any machine, basically, as long as you have an internet connection and Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge, I assume. I used to be working with Safari as my main browser. Again, the interactivity between the different tools that I have within the macOS ecosystem, I can easily switch browser tabs between my iPhone, my iPad and my MacBook. But for Fabric, it is better, I think, to use a Chromium-based browser. So either Microsoft Edge or Google Chrome will work just fine. Now within Google Chrome, you can of course log in quite easily into Microsoft Fabric, and then from there you have all the stuff that you would ever need. So when going into a workspace right here, we can find all the stuff that we have, and we can, for example, we can open notebooks. Let's find one of the notebooks here. Let's open this extractor notebook. This is an orchestrator to do extraction runs out of Odoo, one of our ERP systems. And we can simply work with the code right here. So what we can do here is we can write code. We can have everything that we are used to working on a Windows machine. And we can run this code, we can schedule things and so on. Now going back, what we can also do quite easily in here is we can work with pipelines. Again, the Data Factory pipelines or the Fabric pipeline functionality that we have is just something that's working in the browser. So whether you're using Azure Data Factory, your Azure portal, or you're using Fabric pipelines as your orchestration tool, we can easily work with them and we can edit anything that we would like. So there's no issues here working with stuff whatsoever. Now the big issue is that in the past we would not be able to use Power BI on a MacBook. So what we would be doing is I would have a virtual machine using Parallels. It's no sponsors here, but I would be using Parallels, and I'm a big fan of Parallels. They give us the option to run Windows in a virtual environment inside your MacBook, and I think they are fully accredited or certified by Microsoft to do so, and it works really, really well. So if you have a spare Windows 11 license, you can install Windows on your MacBook without actually doing the dual boot thing, which is, in my opinion, a bit of a hassle. You can just run a virtual machine. And then inside that virtual machine, you can easily run Power BI Desktop, Visual Studio, SQL Server Management Studio, and so on, everything that you would be using inside of Windows. However, with the online editing experience that we're getting within Power BI for Microsoft Fabric, we won't need Parallels anymore, or at least we will be using Parallels in the Power BI Desktop a little bit less. So also from my browser in here, I can go into a semantic model. I can open that semantic model and I can start, whoops, here it is, open the semantic model. And I can find the entire model that we have here, and we can even edit most of the properties in our model. We can write DAX code, we can create relationships and so on. So for example, when I go to the model here and then we go to measures, we can look at our actual versus budget measure in here, and I can just write my DAX code to do analyses with Power BI on the web. So I won't need Power BI Desktop anymore to do this. From the browser, we can do a lot of stuff. We can work with all kinds of data engineering and data orchestration tools within Fabric, such as pipelines and notebooks. We can browse the lakehouse, we can look at the files in the data lake and so on. We can even do Power BI semantic models, we can do DAX measures, we can do Power BI report visualizations and so on. So we don't need anything outside of our browser. However, you can make your life as a developer a little bit easier. And you can do that by using one of the following tools. For example, using Visual Studio Code. And Visual Studio Code is a development environment that I like to use to have a couple of things ready or at my fingertips. One of which is dark mode. As you can see, my screen is all black now, and dark mode is the best mode. So come over to the dark side if you haven't already. So Fabric Portal on the web browser is still light mode only. You can have your Visual Studio Code in dark mode. Now what we can do here is using the extension that's called Fabric Data Engineering. It still has the old Synapse Analytics icon here. However, it's called Fabric Data Engineering right now. From here we can connect to our accounts, and then those accounts will give us access to different workspaces that we have in Fabric or in Power BI. And we can open all kinds of things such as lakehouses, such as notebooks and so on. So if you want to work on your local environment with notebooks in Fabric, you can do so. And you can do so, for example, by clicking at the workspace. And you can start opening your notebooks in Visual Studio Code like this. Now your code is running on your local machine. You can have all the tools and all the things that you are used to working with Visual Studio Code, and there's no need to do stuff in the web browser. Is this perfect? No, maybe not. Is it cool? Yes, you can have dark mode, you can have your VS Pets. We can see that my little dog here is running. We can throw him a ball that keeps him busy for a while. And we have all kinds of other stuff. I have Super Maven installed as my coding co-pilot basically, and we can run code right here. Now if we want to run code from Visual Studio Code on our MacBooks, we have to select a kernel first. The kernel is the engine that is providing you with the intelligence, the logic and the compute power to actually run your code. And if you're running Python notebooks, for example, you can add a Python environment where your local machine is providing the compute power, so then you're not executing code against your Microsoft Fabric capacity and you're not using any CUS. So that's actually cool. However, if you want to run Spark notebooks and you want to interact with OneLake, you have to connect to a Microsoft Fabric runtime, which is right here, and then you will be actually running a session on a Spark cluster in your Fabric capacity. So that will be consuming compute just like you would when you would do online stuff. All right, let's head over to the last tool that I want to show you today, which is the Microsoft Azure Storage Explorer. And this again is a macOS native app, so we don't have to virtualize anything. This is just running on my MacBook. You can download it for free. You can log into your account and you can browse all of the data lakes and blob storage accounts that you might have access to in your organization. And now what I've done, I have attached a blob container here. It's called that Fabric guy, and I navigated to one of the workspaces in my Fabric environment. And now from here I can browse all the different objects that are on the files in that workspace. So this is really cool. For example, we have a lakehouse that is called Gold. So this is my golden lakehouse. And as you can see, the folder that we're looking at in this blob container is called gold.lakehouse. Now, if we open gold.lakehouse, because it's a lakehouse, we find 3 different subfolders in the UI, in Fabric, on the web, in the web browser. There's only 2. There's only files and tables, and we get table maintenance in here as well. We don't really care about table maintenance for now because we can work with the files and tables in our data lake quite easily by, for example, going to tables. And now what we see here is that we have a lot of Delta tables that are just folders basically. I have another video on Delta, but they're just folders on our data lake, and we can work with those files. So we have a data set right here, we have our Delta log right here, and from here we can do a lot of things. We can do cleanups, we can copy data, we can manually upload data into Fabric without working with the web browser and maybe some of the more difficult things that we're trying to do. So this is really cool. It's also easy to see statistics here without writing code. We can just look for folder statistics right here, and we will get the statistics for this single table. So we see that there's 6,249 bytes in this folder, which is just the metadata, by the way, the Delta log of this table. So we get a lot more ways in which we can interact with Fabric and with our OneLake using the Microsoft Storage Explorer. Now, if you are using a MacBook and you're using different tools than I am, please let me know in the comments. I'm always happy to learn. I'm open to learn, and I want to be working with the most efficient or the most powerful tools. So if you're using tools that I've not shown you today, please let me know in the comments. If you like this video, please like the video. I mean, you like the video, but please press like as well. That will help me get discovered by YouTube. And subscribe to my channel, because every week I will be making videos just like this one, and I will be teaching you about Microsoft Fabric. So subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next week.